Supergirl just cast transgender activist Nicole Maine as TV's first ever transgender superhero, Dreamer. Yet why is this casting so important to the transgender community? And why do some find it so controversial? It's time to nerd out. While the number of transgender characters in comics has been growing for years, such as in the pages of Saga, Alters, Bitch Planet, and DC Comics' own Batgirl comic, Dreamer in the upcoming Season 4 of CW's Supergirl represents the first time a transgender superhero character has existed in live-action TV. And I promise I'm only mildly upset that they didn't cast me. But in all seriousness, I and many transgender people are excited for this character because we have been starved for this kind of pop culture representation for years. That's because most transgender characters in media have been defined by either oppression or a glorification of our transition stories, when we're not the butt of a joke like in Zoolander 2, The Hangover Part 2, or Ace Ventura.
She's Ray Finkel, she's a man.
Either we get a movie like A Fantastic Woman, which is a story about how a trans person exists in the face of bigotry, transphobia, and hatred, or we get a story like The Danish Girl, which glorifies a transgender person's journey to have a transition in the face of bigotry, transphobia, and hatred. Think about it. The biggest transgender characters of the last few years have all focused on these types of storylines. 3 Generations, Anything, Transparent, Dallas Buyers Club, Transamerica, Boys Don't Cry, and many others have placed transgender characters in these narratives. This isn't to devalue or diminish these journeys. It's incredibly important that we share and talk about transitions, as it's an important part of trans people's lives. And we also need to talk about the many challenges that trans people face from society. Yet these are the only storylines that transgender people have been allowed to exist in. And transgender people are so much more than the oppression we face or the couple of years that our transitions encompass. It's not like I'm sitting here going, I'm trans all day. Okay, well, maybe I'm a bad example of that because I do that. But like all trans people, I am so much more than my gender identity. I'm a giant geek, a video creator, a journalist, I date, I get depressed over things that have nothing to do with being trans, and I get happy about different things too. Like my adorable kitten Newt. Look at him, isn't he so cute? He's so cute. Yet you would never know that I or other trans people can be all of these things by looking at the few storylines we are given. Not to say that these are the only storylines that exist. Media like Sense8 and Tangerine show transgender characters who are defined by more than just their transness. But those are few and far between. And that's why Supergirl's transgender character is so important. Finally, transgender people can have a character who doesn't have to be defined by her oppression or her transition. Sure, her being transgender will no doubt inform storylines, just as being transgender informs my and other trans people's lives. But it does not have to define it. Yet this character has been controversial to some fans. Many have argued that having a transgender character in anything is an attempt by Hollywood to shove a liberal agenda down their throats. First off, what show are you watching? Supergirl is an insanely liberal TV show. Hell, Supergirl herself works at one of the most feminist news organizations in the DC Comics world.
A female superhero. Shouldn't she be called Superwoman?
While Hollywood certainly is a liberal place, and the push for diversity and representation has come from left-leaning parties, it's important to know that simply representing someone who is a certain identity is not an agenda. Trans people exist. And as a result, we have every right to have stories that include us and show who we can be. It's not about politics, it's just about the human desire to hear and tell stories. And those stories should be reflective of the beauty of humanity itself. Fans have also argued that making the character Dreamer transgender ruins what the character originally was in the comics. First and foremost, while Dreamer, aka Mia Null, shares a last name with Dream Girl Nura Null from the comics, they are not the same character. So there goes that argument. But even if Dreamer was a character that originated in the comics, it's still 100% okay for her to be transgender. Part of why superheroes have existed for decades is their versatility. They aren't just static characters bound by one singular interpretation. Take a look at Batman over the years. We've gotten the wackiness of Adam West, the suaveness of Michael Keaton, the thoughtful intensity of Christian Bale, and the insane murder psychopath of Ben Affleck.
Do you plead?
The same goes for all superheroes, including Dream Girl or Dreamer. Being transgender can be a way to enhance or complicate these characters' storylines in new and interesting ways that we've never seen before, in a way that stays true to the inherent virtue of the character. Being transgender doesn't instantly change everything about a character in a radical way. Gender is just one facet of a character. At the end of the day, all that matters is that we are finally getting a transgender superhero. To finally see a trans person quite literally empowered gives other trans people like myself the chance to feel like they can be empowered too. Just like any kid who believes that they can fly as soon as they pick up their first comic book.